Hi guys, Jason here with Jason's Trucking Info, and if you've never been here before, this channel is dedicated to helping all truck drivers become even better truck drivers. So if that's the type of videos you're looking for, hit the subscribe button below, hit the bell button so you're notified of all my upcoming videos. Share these videos out and give a like and leave any comments or questions below. All right, guys, today's video is all about redonkulous drivers, and that includes not just professional commercial drivers, but also the non-commercial drivers, the regular four-wheelers, the guys in their pickups and cars and whatever. So I'm going to be talking about the different things that drivers do, and I'm mainly talking about commercial drivers, the CDL holders, but some of these things pertain to non-CDL holders, regular drivers as well. So let's get to it. Just as the title screen says, lazy, improper parking. And that includes, and probably more so talks about the non-CDL holders than the CDL holders, but a lot of truck drivers are guilty as well of parking and then noticing that they're not parked straight in between the lines and then not fixing it. So you guys have all seen it, especially like when you go in your own car to parking lots like in Walmart and Target and other any parking lots really, and you see people who don't park evenly between the lines. They're crooked and they don't take the time to fix it. It's one thing when you first pull into a spot and you get in there and then you get out and see that you're crooked and you go fix it. But to just leave it and to say whatever and just mob on off and then cause all the other cars to have to park not in between their lines because they got to leave enough room so they can get out. And so it causes everybody down the line to have to do the same thing. And the same thing happens at truck stops with trucks, where trucks aren't parking between the lines. They're parking on the line, they're parking crooked. And now that doesn't mean that it's not the truck drivers that have parked evenly on their driver's side against the line and they've backed all the way up. Or, sometimes it's the truck drivers haven't backed all the way up, or they've backed up too far, or whatever. And not all parking spaces, the lines are even with each other. Sometimes they're kind of like further apart when you first get in, and then they narrow in, or they narrow at the beginning because they didn't use a measuring tape or whatever when they got out there to paint the lines. That's a little bit different. As long as you're parking straight against one of the lines, then you should be good. And then you should always be getting out and looking to make sure that you backed up far enough so that you're not hanging out too far, to give the guys who park next to you more room to either pull back out or back in or whatever. And then also parking as evenly as possible between the two lines given in your spot, and trying to be as straight as reasonably possible so that it doesn't cause havoc. So that is one of those things that if you park in a spot, you should get out and look to see, because even some of these cars, like I notice in my GMC Terrain, that it's hard to tell once I pull in if I've parked straight. Now, if I'm parking in a spot where there's glass and there's a reflection, a lot of times I can see where I'm at and I don't have to recorrect because I can see the lines are beside me. But if I don't have that, then I have to get out and look a lot because I can't tell, because it's hard to tell in a lot of these cars where you're at. In a truck, it's easier to tell with your mirrors and whatever if you're straight or not. You can look in your mirrors and see if you're even way back there at the end of the trailer. You can tell back there, and then you can just look down, on your driver's window and see where you're at. So you need to make sure that you're parking evenly, as reasonably even as possible in your spot. Make sure you back up for far enough in your spot or not too far, and try to have your truck and trailer straight in there, not all crooked. Make sure you correct it. Don't just be whatever. A lot of new drivers get frustrated and they just say whatever and just leave it because they've had a frustrating back getting into the spot or whatever. And a lot of people in cars just don't care in parking lots. How many of you been to Walmart and seen cars that just pull in and they're parked crooked as hell and they just can't seem to do it? There are some drivers out there that just have a lot of trouble not being able to park right, and they get frustrated easily, so they just, if they get into the spot, they're happy and they don't care if they've messed up everybody down the line. And they might not be happy about it, but they're too frustrated to fix it, so they just get out and leave it, and they just go on with their life and just come back out. And then you see that everybody else down the line is all messed up because of that one person, until someone leaves, and then the people past that spot park right, and then that kind of fixes it from then on there. So anyway, that, I think you guys get the idea there. All right, guys, this one is drivers who don't drive at consistent speed. This is something I deal with about every time I get out on the highway and drive. And I'm mainly talking about other tractor trailer semi drivers. So this is the thing that that you see a lot of trucks do. Now, I am not talking about the trucks that are governed and that you wind up playing leapfrog with them because you guys are matched similar because of governed speeds and truck weights and load weights and stuff like that. So you guys are, fighting each other's, match speeds, and you're fighting to pass each other. That is not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is when you come up to, you're traveling at your top governed speed and you just about pass a truck and then they take off like a shot and blow your doors off before you can get totally past them. That's one of the situations. The other situation is when you come up on a slower truck and you just about get past them and then they take off like a shot. And then a couple miles down the road, after you've gotten behind them, you catch back up to them a little ways down the road and then you try to pass them again. Sometimes you get past them, sometimes you don't. And then for some reason you have not changed your speed, but for some reason that truck keeps slowing down. And then you get past them, and then down the road they speed up and you pass them again. And then they blow your doors off again because they're not driving consistent speed. For some reason, they're not able to drive at consistent speed. They can't just keep their foot to the floor. Whether or not those trucks are governed or not, and they're not using their cruise control, so they're just using their foot feed, whatever the situation may be, they obviously have the ability to go faster than you. They obviously can go the speed limit, but for whatever reason, they keep slowing down. And this is what I'm talking about as a redonkulous situation where a driver that's capable of driving faster doesn't, and they're constantly slowing down and then speeding back up, and they're back and forth. Not only is that bad on your fuel mileage, it's just makes no sense. So another one of these situations when you get to those guys who obviously are not using their headset, and you can clearly see that they're on their phone. They got their old style flip phone, or just they got their cell phone, and they're right up here against their driver's door driving slow. They've slowed down to like 50, 55 miles an hour or something, and they're driving real slow, and you pass them, and you get a couple miles down the road, all of a sudden this driver has they pass you, look over as they're passing and they're blowing your doors up, but you just get a glance at them and you see that they're no longer on their phone. They obviously weren't using their headset. They've obviously gotten on the phone, and all of a sudden they take off like a shot, and they're driving 70, 75, 80. They're either not governed, or they just drive a fast enough more speed than you that they're able to just blow your doors off, and they just vroom. You're just like, well, if you could have gone that fast, why weren't you going that fast? They obviously slowed down because they're busy talking on the phone. They couldn't use their headset, if they even have a headset. So that's one of the things. Drivers who don't drive at consistent speed for no reason at all. They're just driving slow when they could have, when they're capable of going faster, and they're not. And when you're going that slow, you should be using your hazards. If you anytime you're doing, depending on the situation in the highway and whatever, just like you should be turning on your hazards when you're pulling up a steep grade and you get slowed down because you got a heavy load. You should be putting your hazards on anytime you're going to be doing anything possibly dangerous, like driving significantly slower than the rest of the traffic, whether that's pulling up a steep grade or on a flat highway. You deal with this all over the country, and I deal with this about every time I'm behind the wheel. Drivers who just don't drive the consistent speed. They're constantly slowing up and driving fast, blowing your doors off, slowing back down, whatever. Sometimes cars are guilty of it, but I'm mainly talking about other commercial drivers. So, on to the next thing. Traffic situation is until the last possible second. And anymore, I just want to stay in the travel lane, in the right lane, and just let those cars do what they're going to do, and trucks, and let them just drive off in the off the shoulder, because they failed to do what they are supposed to do, yielding to the existing traffic on the highway. And this is something that is becoming a really big pet peeve for me, because I'm tired of watching these cars and other trucks not merging properly. Now, I will try to get over for most trucks, and I might even get over from a lot of cars anymore, because I just don't want to get in an accident most of the time. I used to be a lot more of a prick behind the wheel, and I would never move over, except for other trucks. Other trucks I'd move over, but for cars, I would like never move over. If you were a car coming off a ramp, you better hope that you're prepared to slow down at the end of the ramp, or you're driving off. And it seems like every time these cars come down the ramp, barreling, just going high speed, barreling, whoom, and then they see me coming beside them, and they'll start driving off on the shoulder, because they couldn't either get up to speed fast enough to get ahead of me, or to slow down and get behind me, and then they can pass me after they get on. No biggie, but most drivers today just can't seem to get that concept. So, and they always want to blame you, and then you get those cars come around you, giving you the finger and everything. Anyway, I've spoke long enough on that. Let's move on to the next thing. Alright guys, the next thing is people driving slow on the highway for no apparent reason. They're driving so slow on the highway that it is unsafe, and they're not using their hazards, not using blinkers. A lot of these people are the cars driving or pulling U-Haul trailers or driving the U-Haul trucks, or just cars just driving extremely slower than the posted speed limit, and they are not driving with their hazards on, and they're obviously driving very slow, and sometimes they are driving so slow that there's that optical illusion going on where you can't tell how fast they're actually going. You can't tell that they're going that slow until you're almost on top of them and almost ready to run into the back of them, because they're going that slow that you cannot tell how slow they're actually going. So that is another redonkulous situation. And anytime anybody goes a significant amount slower than the posted speed limit or traffic, if you're going slower, a good 5, 10, 15 miles slower than the traffic around you, then you should be using your hazards. Plain and simple. Trucks do it when we're going up a mountain grade or down the other side and we have to go slower. All vehicles going slower at a slower speed should use our hazards whenever we're going a significantly slower speed. Now, 5 miles or so, not so bad. But if you're doing a good 15, 20 miles slower than everybody else, you should be using your hazards going down the road. And the worst ones I notice are, it's not always old people, because I see a lot of young people doing it too. So it's not you can't really pick on any real certain group, because I've noticed old people, young people, and people with U-Hauls, and even other semi drivers at times driving really slow for no reason, and they're not using their hazards for no apparent reason. They're driving really slow and they're being dangerous because do not have their hazards on to indicate. Now, if you see a vehicle with hazards on, you see them and you notice, and then you pick up on it quicker. And then there's the vehicles who aren't using their hazards and they're driving slow. And a lot of times you do notice it if you're paying attention like you should, but you don't. You're trying to figure out what about that vehicle is um, getting your attention. And then you notice when you just about run over them or run into the back of them, that they are going so stupidly slow that they are going to cause an accident. So it's a very dangerous situation. So make sure that you're always using your hazards if you're going to drive slow. You should be using your hazards whenever you back up your truck. Anytime you back up your truck, or do anything a little bit hairy-carry in your truck, that you should be alerting other vehicles if you're going to drive, doing anything backing. Any backing procedure, use your hazards. Um, then there's other situations as well, but anytime you're going to do something that might be a little bit on the dangerous side, use your hazards, always. And that doesn't matter if you're in a semi-truck or a regular car. Use your hazards if you're going to be driving very slow or whatever, so that people see you and know to go around you or to watch out for you. To tell them that's what they're there for, is to signal to other vehicles, other drivers, that you are doing something possibly a little unsafe, or that they need to watch out for you. That's what they're there for. Use them. All right, guys, here is another big one: improper lane control. That means people, cars, and trucks not being able to maintain their lane. It's really bad when semi drivers did because we are supposed to be the professionals on the road. Yet, how many semi truck drivers do you see not staying in their lane? How many semi truck drivers are too busy playing with their phone or doing whatever and they're not staying in their lane? And how many of these drivers do you see hugging if you okay, if you're not going to stay dead center in your lane, then you should be hugging on a two-lane highway. If you're in the right lane, you should be hugging the shoulder if you're not going to stay dead center. All right, that way you stay clear away from the vehicles that want to pass you, and gives more space between you and those vehicles. If you are passing other people, you should be hugging the left shoulder. Okay? You should be hugging that left shoulder and giving more lane. And when two vehicles pass each other, they should both do this. When you're getting passed, you should move over, and when you're passing, you should move over the other direction and give more space off that center line. Problem is, you get a lot of these drivers that go to pass other vehicles, or they're just traveling down the road and they are hugging the line off their passenger side of the vehicle. You should never get close to things on your passenger side that are dangerous. When you're passing vehicles, you should keep your passenger side furthest away from things such as other vehicles and whatnot, because that is the side that you see the worst, right? In a semi truck, in a regular car, unless you're driving in Europe where it's reverse or something like that, keep your passenger side furthest away from the lines, unless stay to the line that's furthest away from other vehicles when you're traveling down the highway. So there's also that thing where drivers who like to stay in the hammer lane and they'll hug that center line and they'll zip down the road going 80, 90 miles an hour, speeding, and they hug the center line instead of hugging the shoulder closest to the driver's side. And they'll come close to hitting other vehicles. They'll almost be straddling that center line in some cases because they're not paying attention. This is a bad practice. I've seen semi drivers and cars do that. And it's something that nobody should be doing, and there's no reason to be doing it, but a lot of drivers just don't pay attention to what they're doing. So make sure that if you're not going to stay dead center in your lane, that you stay furthest away from whichever side vehicles are going to be. If you're going to pass other vehicles, make sure you get to the left of your lane and get furthest away from the vehicles. And if you're not going to stay dead center again, get over in your lane. You should be trying to maintain dead center, but I know there's potholes, there's things in the road and stuff like that, and sometimes you have to, do other things. But under normal circumstances, you should be moving over in your lane if you're not going to stay dead center. So it's very dangerous. A lot of people come close to hitting each other or sideswiping each other, trucks and cars alike. And it's something that people really need to pay attention to. It's out of laziness and people just not caring anymore. People get on the road, they don't care about the rules of the road. They just drive however they want. They speed, they do whatever, they cut each other off, they do all kinds of stupid things, and it is very dangerous out there on the highways, and you really got to pay attention to what people are doing. So you need to watch the cars that are coming up on you to pass you. You got to watch the cars you are going to pass. You need to watch where you're at in your lane. So it's just one of those redonkulous things. All right, guys, this is not everything that I could have included in this video, but I figured this was enough for now. There could have been other things like drivers multitasking behind the wheel, doing social media on their phone, text messaging, being on the phone without a headset, and there's probably many other things I could have talked about in this video, but I decided to leave it at what it was. And on closing thoughts, don't forget to try to catch me live. I try to get on live, and who knows what I'll be talking about. I go live a lot these days on this channel, and who knows what I'll be talking about. And if I get people in my live feeds, I try to talk about stuff, but until I get a little bit more of a following, it's going to be hard to really have a lot of dialogue. But I encourage you to come and catch me on my live feeds, which are kind of random. I sometimes will try to schedule those, but please come by and catch me on my live feeds. So thanks for watching, guys. This is the end of the video. I appreciate you watching the video, and for those of you that watched the whole thing, thank you for the watch time, and I appreciate those guys taking the time to watch my videos. I appreciate those of you that are my subscribers. If you're not a subscribers, if you're not one of my subscribers, please do so. And I'll catch you next video. Thanks for watching, guys.